I think these are the things you need to look at when you look at a concept. Do I trust the team? Am I impressed by this team when I go meet them? Is there something about the founder? Is there something about the team itself that's going to help me operate that I look at them and I'm like, wow, I have a crush on you guys. Like, I'm infatuated by it, right? Like, I like want to be around you. Do they actually have a founder that knows the business, right? And then not only do I have enough money to meet the minimum, because all the franchises have a minimum requirement, but do I have the minimum plus some, right? Because if you're just barely scraping by, knowing what we know about franchising, that we're usually trying to get a lot of people in, we're trying to get them in fast, you need to have the money plus some.
Yo, this is the Streetwise Podcast, where we help you level up your game, level up your leadership, and level up your life. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a multi-brand franchisee, and I'm a franchise consultant, which means I help people find, launch, and build their ideal franchise business. My main goal is to help you get off of zero and become the person that your dreams need you to be. Buckle up, get your popcorn ready, let's go.
I have to have the capital, and I have to make sure that I am the right candidate for the widget. But if those two things match, if I do have enough capital, and if I am the right candidate for the widget, I can compete with anybody in any space. When I came in at 25 in pest control, I've got $1 million pest control business. I don't care two licks about killing bugs.
So we're going to take it over.
Man, let's go.
But we got to be careful because we got to have a strategy behind that.
Interesting situation because the audience is 800 people, maybe. It's very small.
Pet waste
Franchise
businesses.
owners and other...
Not franchise, though. In fact, there's this giant canyon in the pet industry. I want to talk a little bit about this today and talk about and pick your brain on why you see so much value in franchises. Because in the pet waste industry, it's a small industry. There's probably not even 1,000 businesses. But so many of them are just very anti-franchise. Like, they see it as a threat, they see it as a negative, the entire franchise industry. So there's this canyon in the industry where you've got franchised pet waste businesses, and they're over here, and then you got all the other mom and pop businesses, and there's this giant gap. The mom and pops literally look at the other ones at the franchises as a threat.
As they should probably.
Well, don't say that. No, I'm kidding. No, why though? No, truly, no. Why should they?
Well, franchising provides somebody, I have no experience in pet waste management, but you give me a franchise system, if I got a little money in my pocket, I can compete. I can immediately compete with you.
Okay, good.
I can immediately, from the jump, it doesn't matter the industry.
So because franchising teaches is somebody who otherwise would have to take years to learn it themselves.
Yes, exactly. All I have to do, if I have enough, I have to have the capital, and I have to make sure that I am the right candidate for the widget. But if those two things match, if I do have enough capital, and if I am the right candidate for the widget, I can compete with anybody in any space. When I came in at 25 in pest control, I've got $1 million pest control business. I don't care two licks about killing bugs. I hate bugs. I enjoy killing them, but I've got these guys that have built pest control businesses for years, and now I can be in the same category and the same playing field. Like, am I as good of a pest control professional as Wendell Daniels, who owns All Safe? No, I respect him. I love him. He's great. I'll refer business to him.
He knows all about bugs.
He is a bug guy, right? But I can compete in my little niche because of what a franchise has been able to do for me.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So, in fact, if you're not a franchise, maybe you should be a little threatened by franchise opportunities coming into your space.
Absolutely. I think it does pose a threat. I think.
But can you also see how you can learn from that franchise as well, just by being a competitor, and how, the saying rising tide lifts all ships? That's literally the concept of franchising, right?
I think that's a mindset thing. Yeah, I could either be afraid of a concept, or I can learn from and I can absorb what's being built around
Even
me.
if you don't entirely agree with it, you can still learn something from it.
100%. Like, if a franchise is able to build out this blueprint model for how businesses should be done, if they can duplicate them in different industries, if I can apply it to myself, now that new franchisee who has no industry experience, now they're going to have a hard time taking away from your business. They might be able to sit in their own little lane, but I'm going to still be the big dog if I know this to the back of my hand, and if I can implement those franchise systems in order to build my business and support.
You can have the best of both worlds.
It can go both ways. 100%.
And you've done both.
Yeah.
All right, well, there we are. Part 2.
Let's go.
Ready to go.
Let's go.
That was just warming up. That was just a warm-up.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to dive more into that. That's really good stuff. So what I had in my head is diving more into those types of questions, because you and I are on franchising. It's just very much so top of our minds. And so hearing your perspective is going to be awesome, more so than we had the first time that we met. But I also definitely want to get into more of Streetwise and your podcast, your digital presence, your all that stuff that you're doing. So I want to make sure we get into that. But thank you again for joining us. It was like it was immediately as we were talking, like seriously 10 minutes in, I was like, there's no way we're going to get this done with the time that we have. We've got so much to talk about. So yeah, dude, thank you for coming back. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys for having me, man. It's a pleasure. Told you walking in, man. My favorite people.
Well,
Love
good.
you guys.
Well, maybe we'll have you on some more.
Come on, man.
Be a
Let's
regular.
do it. Yeah, please. Please. I'm begging you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk franchising and kind of keep what we were talking. Here's another question for you that I've gotten. Sorry, Ben. I'll run out of questions.
Ben's gonna have to fight for the floor today.
Yeah, exactly.
Between the two, he's gonna have to box us out.
So, franchising, you consider a franchise opportunity. You're a small business owner, right? Like
yes.
You're a franchisee of Mosquito Joe's and Groovy Hughes, and you are a small local business owner, right? Like franchising isn't big business. It's the good parts of the way I look at it. It's the good parts of big business, the brand, the experience, sometimes the capital to help. But then it's also the good parts of small business. It's the local
100%.
business owner getting ownership into the local marketplace. You're usually getting ownership with a franchise system, right?
100%. Franchising gives you the opportunity to scale at a rate that would be really difficult to do if you were building from scratch. But the majority of franchise owners, I mean, these are family-run, husband, wife combos that one of the two of them, you know, they've been working in some capacity for their life, and they've been able to build up some sort of cash reserve, and they want to build something for themselves. So instead of starting from scratch, maybe they themselves didn't have a specific craft, but it allows them basically a craft in a box that they can plug all their resources and all their energy into to build off of, and to build a small business and expand it for themselves. Now the opportunity that comes and what can be done with a franchise when you really master that is exponential, and that's the stuff I get excited about.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Like what?
Man, you just hear about these guys. Jamie Weeks is a guy, and I don't know his background, but this is a dude that got into Orange Theory and started out with a few licenses, eventually had 190 plus locations, private equity invests, and now the stuff that he's doing in franchising is astronomical compared to like the average franchisee.
So he starts out as a franchisee for what business did
Orange
you say?
Theory.
Orange Theory.
When Orange
and
Theory
you said
was
license,
popping.
so it's a license
It's
more
a
so
license.
than a
Well,
franchise.
I think when it comes to some of these like exponential fitness or like fitness concepts, right? You're buying the license and then you can build off of that. So for me and Mosquito Joe, I've got 4 territories. But if I have a brick and mortar location where it's not a service business, it's an actual, I have a spot that people come to, those are like licenses. So I have the right to operate under, I can build out 4 locations.
And private equity actually bought him out as a friend, or partnered with him in some way.
I'm trying to get him on the podcast to fully explain it, but I've heard him tell this story. Basically, bought him out and then came in and had him become the CEO of now the new organization, where they continued to buy more licenses or locations just to build it out. He's now sold a couple times, had different bites of the apple. Now Sweat House. He's now the franchisor of Sweat House, which is like infrared, sauna, cold plunge.
You've almost signed up for it?
They've got a few out here in DFW. I mean, DFW is one of the fastest growing markets in franchise. Any new franchise concept that's going out.
Dallas
where
is
we
one
are
of the-
right now
it's
is
a
one of the
premium place.
fastest.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And Collin County is probably the fastest inside of Dallas-Fort Worth.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
100%.
it's premium.
Then you got like South Lake, that area out there, but Collin County for sure is prime.
Yeah, no doubt.
100%.
So do you find, and because you're in the broker side as well, you're helping people make the decision for themselves whether or not franchising is for them. Do you find that the primary demographic buying into a franchise model are people, couples, and or individuals that have worked 10, 20 years in a different career, they've got some savings to put towards a business? Is that usually the MO? It's not usually like young guys 23 years old that are like putting everything they have into their first territory.
From what I've seen, the majority of people, they've worked in corporate America for some capacity for 15, 20, 25 years. They're 40, 50, low 60s, and now they're tired of corporate America. They're getting to that retirement age, but they're not ready to hang up the cleats.
Yeah.
And so now they're looking for something to build for themselves, but not necessarily by themselves. And I just think of my dad, right? He worked at Apple Computer for 22 years. He was mid-50s and was looking for an industry to fall into, found Mosquito Joe, which is a pest control concept, in DFW, in Collin County, realized like, oh, and Rockwall County, there's always going to be a demand. This seems like a simple model that I can pick up. I don't like mosquitoes. I can fall behind and become passionate about this. I think that's the key is you don't have to be passionate about the widget itself. Like I said, I'm not a pest control guy, but I've run a pest control business for almost a decade. I have to be able to find passion within the business somewhere.
Yeah.
For me, it was developing people and building teams. For my dad, it was customer service and putting service back into the service industry. He says that all the time.
Putting service back
I
into
used
the
to think,
service
this guy's
industry.
so corny for saying it, but I love him for it.
Corny
And
is
the
usually good.
I am learning so much from that man, and I've been so blessed by the opportunities that he's provided.
These are pretty corny.
These are pretty corny, but I love them. I have to put it down so I don't keep.
Yeah, no,
fiddling
I'll
with it the whole
distract
time.
everything.
I'll leave
'cause
that to
just sit
you.
here.
So I've also noticed too where it's like in these Facebook groups, there's a lot of like service-based Facebook groups, and I've seen a lot of people say that they want to get into a franchise, but their perspective is that yes, they're getting to the point where they're getting to retirement, not quite there yet, but their intent is it's a retirement plan of some sort, and they want to leave it to their kids. Do you see a lot of that?
Yeah, when franchising, it's definitely, it allows you to build a legacy.
Yeah.
Now, whether you leave it to your kids, whether you build it out yourself and you're looking to sell it, I think the key is you need to start with the end in mind. Your kids might not want to take over the business, right? And so if that's your exit strategy, you might be caught up unless you've already had that discussion. I think the way that my dad did it from the jump, he knew I was entrepreneurial. He knew that I was building and I was going in a certain direction. He basically just provided me an avenue. He made me a 50-50 partner from the beginning and put me in charge. He elevated me and said, hey, here's X amount of dollars in a bank account. Here's this business. You're my 50-50 partner. You're going to run it. If you want to pay for groceries, you're going to have to build this business. Go. Let me know if you need anything.
I love that.
For
mindset.
me, that was exactly what I personally needed. Now, are all 25-year-olds ready for that opportunity? I don't know if I was. And
Our first franchisee has a similar story. It was a gentleman that was very wealthy, very wealthy.
Okay.
And he bought it for his son. But after 6, 12, 18 months, it was very clear that his son was just not interested in the business. He just wasn't passionate about it, wasn't interested in it, wasn't operating it, and so he ended up selling it to a neighboring franchisee.
Which is also cool in franchising. Like, a lot of people, the negative is, well, what about all the rules? What about all the fees? I'm not going to sell a franchise, I'm not going to sell a chiropractic franchise to a chiropractor, right? If you're a chiropractor, start your own business. You already know what it takes to launch this business. A franchise is going to help you if you don't necessarily know which way to go or which way to start, or if I'm a chiropractor and I have my practice, but I want to diversify. It's a great way to do it. But the other thing with the franchise is if I wanted to sell Mosquito Joe, my territories that are really popping out here in Collin County, the first 2 people I would talk to are my neighboring franchisees.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation that I look to having pretty soon. It's like, hey guys, let's start planning this out. Either I'm going to buy you or you're going to buy me, one way or the other. And I don't know if they'll take it, but I just think I see so much value in starting those conversations and building on those relationships with the franchisees around you, because it's a huge benefit.
I actually hadn't even looked at it from that point of view. You're right. You've got kind of a micro economy inside of each franchise with those local franchisees.
Now,
and your businesses are so well aligned. It's plug and play. Like, it's not like you're buying your competitor of it's got a whole different name. So you're going to have to convince those clients to come over to you. No, the name's the same. The systems, the processes are the same.
You know exactly how to run it. And also, if I've got, throw out a number, I'll make about $900K in revenue this year, just shy of $1 million
Your Mosquito
in
Joes.
revenue in Mosquito Joe.
That's awesome.
Now,
I don't do even close to that Mosquito, regardless of how awesome our new commercial is.
That is a good commercial. It is a good commercial. Now, say I sell my business to my neighboring franchisee who's slightly bigger than me. What are the extra expenses that he's going to have to incur?
Yeah.
Extra labor.
But that's based on the percentage
extra
of
marketing.
revenue. Yeah. So
That's
you've got
it.
an economies of scale to
He's
it.
already got a location. I mean, he's basically incurring an extra, maybe out of that $900K, maybe another $100,000 in expenses for his overall business. He's absorbing all of that additional revenue. His profit.
No, that's exactly. I experienced that. One of the only 2. I've only acquired 2 businesses in all of the years I've been in business, and one of them was in 10 years ago, July 1st. I bought Executive Lawn Care, which was plug and play, because even though we were 2 different names, we ran our businesses very close to one another. And so other than having to convince his 800 or 900 customers that I had bought to come over to Emerald Lawn Care, that's the name of the business I was running at the time, but we had so many synergies. That was actually the first time 10 years ago that I ever discovered the term economies to scale, because I went from struggling doing 1.6 million to being at 2.6 or 2.8 million. It was a whole different ballgame. Like my mindset, in a matter of months, everything about money in my mindset changed because of the economies of scale and doing exactly what you're talking about.
Facts. And I think that's something really important to consider. And in Mosquito Joe, it's still Mosquito Joe. Yeah. The customer's never going to know until they call the home office and ask for, hey, can I talk to Jack?
Yeah.
Other than that, they're not going to notice anything because the technicians are the same technicians. Right. Everything gets absorbed up. So it's beautiful. There's a couple stories. Brian Beers is a guy out in Philadelphia. He owns about 40 plus Midas shops.
Okay.
I mean, this guy is
Maybe I've seen him on LinkedIn because his name sounds familiar.
He's got his own podcast, Business with Beers, and you hear about him and how his uncle and his dad started with 7 Midas franchises when he was growing up. And then when he graduated college, him and his brother came in, started working for the shops, eventually got some financing to buy their own, and then owner financed all these locations. And so from $0 down to 100K plus down, there are a handful of people's retirement plans. They've basically bought out the entire Philadelphia market at this point, and they use the cash flow from their businesses to pay out these ex-franchise owners, and they've just expanded. And because of the additional revenue, they're able to invest. He's got a COO, and he's got regional managers that's over maybe 6 or 7 locations each, and then build out an entire team.
And that makes that adds value in the business at every level.
Yep.
And then becomes based on what he's done, he's probably a target, a good in a positive way, a target for private equity.
That's when you get the private equity coming in, because they're looking at units open, they're looking at total revenue, and they're looking at like the recurring aspect of what they can invest in. So I salivate over stuff like that, man. That's really cool. Yeah. It's really cool.
No, that's awesome.
I think for just one last point on that was something that I tried to do with investing from Mosquito Joe to Groovy Hughes. What I didn't consider at the time, and what I think is important, is you need to consider the synergies between the brands. Brian Beers was able to do it with one brand.
Yeah.
Perfect synergy. I thought all home services are created equal. They're not. The Mosquito Joe cycle and the Groovy cycle, completely different with paint and pest
And we
control.
talked a little bit about
we
this,
talked
so
about
I won't
that
get
last
into it too
time,
much, but I totally feel you with Chorby on that. Totally feel you.
Yeah, so that was a lesson that I learned, but it's given me education now to then provide value to people that I get to speak into in platforms like this. So
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue into Streetwise. So give us the rundown, because we talked mostly about the home service businesses that you are franchising and running, but we didn't talk about Streetwise. So I want to get into that. Give us an overview of what it is and what your mission is.
So with Streetwise Franchising, it is my brand for being a franchise consultant. So I am under a franchise broker network, Franchoice. In my opinion, one of the best broker networks in the game right now.
Well, the biggest, aren't they?
Not the biggest, but one of the most exclusive.
They're well branded, because I've heard of them for
extremely
years
well
upon
branded.
years upon
Some of the
years.
best consultants in the game are a part of Franchoice. Franchoice will come in. We've got about, maybe around 90 or so consultants. You'll go to bigger groups that have closer to 1,000.
Oh, wow, okay.
But you'll talk to some of these franchise brands, and Franchoice brings in 40+% of their franchise candidates. And so you got a lot of volume coming from a very limited number. It took me over a year to get in. I got told no so many times, but I'm pretty persistent. So got into Franchoice. Streetwise is my personal brand. So I want to teach, train, and build the future of entrepreneurs. And so it's my way of elevating the game, right? So you've got a lot of these consultants out there that, for better or for worse, they've never run.
They've never done anything to be a consultant
They've never
in an MBA.
done it.
I'll
right?
say it. You don't have to say it. They've never done anything except for go to school and be a consultant.
Now, you've got a lot of great consultants
Yeah,
out there.
absolutely.
I am on the ground. I am on the ground. Like I'm building these businesses. I don't have an MBA. I don't have a lot of, my experience is in urban education. I'm a teacher and a coach from the inner city. And I have literally learned everything I know from getting reps over and over and over. And so from thinking about building out a brand, the Streetwise brand is a collection of my experience as a franchisee for almost a decade. It's from being a teacher and a coach, and it's my way of providing value to individuals who are looking into getting to business for themselves but not by themselves, and they don't know where to start. I'm going to keep it real. I'm not involved in the sales process of any particular brand. I'm here to give you education, to add value to your journey, and just to help you out, to elevate you, and really to get you off of zero to be the person that your dreams need you to be. It's my whole thing, man.
So how far were you in with owning your franchises that you started, or you connected with Franchoice and got in with them?
So I first connected with Franchoice in December of 2022. I didn't get accepted into Franchoice until the fall of 2023, so just under a year. But it was like, hey, I would love to be a consultant. No, you're not ready. Hey, I would love to be a consultant. No, you're not ready.
How'd you know them? What made you decide you would love to be a consultant? And how'd you know Franchoice was the way to go?
So that's a good question. So I actually found Groovy Hughes through a different broker network.
Okay.
And the guy I was working with got me into Groovy Hughes, and I basically, in him doing his due diligence on me, was asking about how I wanted to grow in the franchising space. And so I told him, I'm kind of interested in what you do. They interviewed me, and it's funny because I went through about 3 to 4 rounds of interviews, and I was basically told, you don't have the same reason why Franchoice told me no. You don't have a big enough portfolio of candidates to bring in.
Like your network.
You don't have a big enough network. You're not polished enough, and you're too green in the space. You're too rough around the edges. And he was like, hey, man, and I have a good relationship with this guy. And it was after the 3 or 4 interviews when I finally got rejected, he was like, you should reach out to Franchoice. And it was a week later, I went to a franchise expo, met Irving Chung, who's a consultant for Franchoice, connected with him. It was kind of like just a crazy series of events.
But your dad didn't go through the broker networks when he bought
My
Mosquito
dad did not
Joe's.
go through
He
the
went
broker
straight
networks.
to Mosquito Joe.
He
And
went
at the time,
straight to Mosquito Joe.
they were independent.
They were with Buzz Franchise Brands before it was Buzz Franchise Brands.
Okay.
And so of what it is today. So Kevin Wilson and that team, who I'm about to drop an episode with Kevin Wilson here soon.
Cool.
By the time this drops, that episode will probably be up. That was really cool to have him on the show. But yeah, he came from a crazy Bain & Company background.
Oh, wow.
They bought Mosquito Joe, franchised it, created Buzz franchise brands. Now they've got Pool Scouts, British Swim School, Wonderly Lights.
But they've
and
sold some too.
They sold Mosquito Joe to Neighborly. And it was interesting hearing about why he did that. It was basically he had a bunch of investors that helped him buy Mosquito Joe with the vision that he conveyed. And 2018, it was time to pay out those initial investors and build out on his other vision.
Yeah.
And so was able to do that.
He sold it to get his investors paid back and to take those resources and really build his Buzz brands, which is all of these other brands. In a lot of ways, similar to what the founders of Groovy Hughes did in some ways.
Yeah, because at Monster Tree Service,
yeah, exactly.
They, Josh Skolnick, Zach Butler.
Sorry about the fly, man.
Me,
I keep looking at it. I want to get the fly swatter.
Fly's killing me, man. Zach Butler, Josh Skolnick, Skolnick sold Monster Tree Service, built out Horsepower, and it's very similar to how they're building it out as well. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I love it. As much as I love it, I want to disrupt it in so many ways. Because they're just following that. It's Horsepower, and then you've got what's the brand that owns Duty Calls and a bunch of other.
Fran Devco.
Is that
Fran Devco?
But they were somebody else.
Fran Devco actually has Scoop Brothers, which is one that's a new one that just popped up.
But it's all basically a private equity model, very similar to Neighborly.
You've got these big FSOs that have different models. So an FSO, franchise sales organization like Franchise Fastlane.
Yeah.
They are literally the franchise sales arm of the brand.
Is that Fran Devco?
Fran Devco is a little bit different.
Okay.
Where Fran Devco will actually help you in building out your brand, and they might act as a parent company of the brand itself.
They get a piece of the franchise business.
They're going to offer different services and something than just Franchise Fastlane. Rep'em is another one where Rep'em will have multiple brands, but it's like build them, grow them, scale them, right? Yeah. So they have different arms of the brand, and then you have something like Horsepower that is completely over. Horsepower is its own internal FSO, no outside.
Right, it's all
arms.
In-house, yeah. And they do everything. They've got their marketing in-house. They've got for all of their different brands. They've got all of that.
Marketing brand,
is Neighborly more like that,
brand,
where they've got all that in-house?
Very similar to Neighborly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Resi Brands is a new one that's popping up that you guys might be inclined to know.
Resi, I think I've heard that one too.
Yeah.
But my interest.
Do you know people at Resi?
Yeah, Stephen Montgomery, man, that's my guy.
Maybe make some connections.
Yeah, no doubt. I actually love those guys.
Yeah.
They've got that one painter. They've got Pinks, which is a window cleaning, power washing concept. They've got Garage Up, and they're basically building out. It's crazy. You look at Neighborly and what Neighborly's done, and I mean they were the Dwyer Group, and now they converted to Neighborly, and they're building everything out. Now you got these other groups that are basically like duplicating that model, but they're doing it in their own savvy way.
They're all doing it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I love the way that Resi Brands is doing it. It just seems so organic, and they're so involved and engaged with their franchisees in a way that I haven't seen it from others trying to fall into the same space from a parent company perspective. I really like it, and that's from a consultant, but also from a franchisee perspective in both Neighborly and Horsepower.
Yeah,
I really like the way
Someone
has their own
podcast and talks about White Picket Team.
You mean you? Okay. Yeah. Because a lot of that ties into the vision of White Picket. In some ways, we'll carve our own unique niche out, and the same for Chorby. In a lot of ways, what these brands are doing is what I envision doing with Chorby. But the unique piece to Chorby is it'll be a single name, single application where the clients are shared, which brings its own challenges as the franchisor and the whatever franchisees choose to do alongside us.
I'm almost curious, just talking with you guys on how you've scaled Chorby. You have Scoop Soldiers, and you have Chorby, which is like this all-encompassing concept. Do you ever think about breaking them up into different brands, and Chorby being the...
Well, yeah, if you think about it, that's our unique selling proposition in a lot of ways, is to not do that.
Okay.
So, yes, you could look at Chorby as being this future parent brand that has a unique brand in lawn care and a unique brand in plumbing and a unique brand, but then that's literally no different than Horsepower or Neighborly or any of, we would maybe have our own unique, there'd be some differences, just as you were just talking, there's differences in each of these, right? None of them are the exact same. But that's what I want to be unique about Chorby. One brand. Imagine if Neighborly was literally Neighborly. There was no Mosquito Joe's. There was no, 30 brands Neighborly operates?
I think they've got like around 20, low 20s. I think it's like 19 or 21.
I thought it was almost 30, but 20 to 30 brands. Imagine if those 20 to 30 brands evaporated, and I know this can't actually happen because all the franchisees would.
Well, Neighborly's trying it.
They want
and
to.
There's a lot of the old school franchisees that are fighting back.
But imagine the synergies you could get if you can execute on that right. Imagine the technology. I know Neighborly's built an application that's
Horsepower's working on it too.
Horsepower's working on it too. So, but imagine I think that Horsepower's honestly that they're just doing the same thing Neighborly did. It's not as original as what I want to do with Chorby, because you've got all these independent brands. So you're going to confuse the client. But imagine if it was all just Chorby. Your plumber or your mowing guy or your pool guy shows up, and it's a different guy because maybe it's an owner operator, maybe it's just an employee of a franchisee. But the point is you've got the local ownership in the whatever skilled trade that ownership is passionate in, showing up to your house and delivering the service all under one brand. So it's about the client more so than it is about an investment, more so than it is about building the business. And
so do you have multiple, we'll just say Collin County, do you have multiple Chorby owners sitting on top of each other in Collin County?
We would. Well, I'll own Collin County for that'll be our corporate brand.
Travis County and Austin.
So yeah, you have Travis County and Austin. This is the piece. That's what I mean by we've got to execute correctly. Because if we don't execute right, we'll never make it. But yes, ideally, Travis County could have, because you'll be able to grow inside of the Chorby model as an entrepreneur inside of the Chorby model. You could choose to grow. You could be super passionate about fertilization and weed control, about lawn care, right? Super passionate about that, but could care less about anything else. And so you could build your business geographically large by owning all these territories that are only Chorby fertilization businesses.
And then you can also go deep.
But if you're more like you were just talking about, you love business, you love the leadership side of it. So you're inside of the Chorby model, and maybe you own Chorby Plumbing for Allen, Texas, and Chorby Pools for Allen, Texas, and Chorby Pest Control for Allen, Texas, and Chorby Garage Door or garage flooring or whatever, and you own all the different verticals for maybe 3 or 4 territories, maybe Travis County or Collin County. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can grow and be an entrepreneur inside the system depending on what your interests are. If you're interested in the skilled trade, or if you're just interested in business in general.
Yo, thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building, Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure, and it's my mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I know what it means to struggle. I know what it means to build a team. If you're ready to get off of zero, if you're ready to build something for yourself, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's get the conversation started. Don't wait until tomorrow to build your future. It starts today. Streetwise Franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode.
But the key to all that is that we got to solve as the franchisor that will be very unique is, if you have an asshole pest control franchisee that's going to run clients off that are shared with 5 other franchisees in the pools and in the mowing, and then you've got to be careful. And so I've done a lot of I'm talking too much, I know, but I've done a lot of studying on like the Chick-fil-A model, because Chick-fil-A, they get the bad ones out quick. The bad franchisees.
Chick-fil-A is it's such a different model.
It
because
is.
Chick-fil-A maintains so much control over
and I never understood.
Store.
I never understood how they did that, but I wanted to.
You can't actually sell your Chick-fil-A. It's not yours. You have to be the operator.
You're correct.
And you can't sell it.
And you can never own more than 3.
It's a super glorified job in the way that you're getting paid out the wazoo relative to what the average American is going to make.
What the average general manager of a fast food restaurant is.
Yes, facts.
because you're getting profit sharing.
you just don't get the bite of the apple if you were ever to sell it.
You're exactly right. You're
And
exactly
that's
right.
they squeeze that control
But
out
I
of it.
studied Chick-fil-A. I knew all of that part of
Okay.
Chick-fil-A. My brother-in-law owns a Chick-fil-A. I knew all that part. But what I didn't understand was the part that I needed to understand, factoring in this problem that what if I ever have a really bad what if, because sometimes they get into the system. What if I ever have a bad franchisee and I have a 10-year franchise agreement and you can't kick them out because they haven't done anything that egregious, right? It should be very rare that a franchisee gets removed as a franchisee. So how do you manage that? Well, I really did some studying, and the way that Chick-fil-A does it, I hate it. Like, I won't ever be able to do this. But the way they do it is they only have 1-year franchise agreements. So whereas what is common, ours is 10 years. Yeah,
10 is, I've
Ours
heard
started out
about
as
5,
7.
but 10 is the
So
average.
Chick-fil-A's franchise agreement is only 1 year. So that way, at the end of every year, if you're
You
not
get to
performing,
reevaluate.
they basically come to you and say, no, we're not going to renew your franchise agreement.
Which, because it's such a minimal investment up front,
They don't-
you're not screwing these people over
Exactly.
out of their investment. I think that's the thing that,
Exactly.
you do this marriage, and on one hand, you might have a terrible franchisee,
But they've got equity in that
but
business.
they've got a ton of equity in this business, whereas if we take, as a franchisor, if we take this back, we can still sell it.
Yeah.
And that was a question, how egregious does it need to be in order to
See,
pull
Chick-fil-A
out?
is very strict, and they have a reputation for that.
Oh, it's hard to get
But
a
you know the
Chick-fil-A.
other one, right? But you know the other one that's similar, I think. I haven't done that much research on this, so I'm getting into area that I don't know where I'm talking about. Is what's the one that Neighborly owns, the housekeeping business that Neighborly owns?
Housemasters.
I think that's set up
I
similarly.
had Jordan May there, the
Am
development
I wrong on
person.
that? Theirs is not. Theirs is
Housemasters.
set up in a way that like it's literally made for an owner operator, for like the person that's going to be going to the houses and cleaning the houses.
Yeah,
I
they
think that's how
want
it's
they
set up.
want the individual to be the not just owner operator, but you are that business.
You're doing the
like
work,
it
yeah.
is you, and eventually you can scale it out, sure. But yeah, I had her on the podcast a little bit ago, and that's huge. And in her whole process, she's like, I asked them, are you a 10? Are you from a scale of 1 to 10 with the level of excitement? Because this is you. And if they're not a 10, they don't get to move past me.
Yeah.
And you don't see that in a lot of franchise concepts, because they're trying to sell, because they know that they need to get a certain number of units sold, certain number of units open, because in franchising they're going for these big exits on the franchisor side. And
See, that's the side I don't like about the business.
Yeah.
That's the whole piece about franchising that I don't like, is especially in 2024. There's always
It's too fast, man.
Yeah, they're trying to pump it up, sell
Yep.
it to private equity so that they can have their exit.
Yep.
And for the record, that doesn't interest me.
Well, I got a lot of respect for you guys because of that, because I think that's the thing that, take my situation with Groovy Hughes, right? Like, we're building this business, but what if it's not a good fit, right? We're franchisee number 7.
Oh wow!
And there's
I didn't realize you were that.
There's 15 currently. Now, a couple of them haven't been successful and are out of the game right now, right? So what does Horsepower get to do? They've been adapting their system. Now, I think Horsepower will be a great, Groovy Hughes will be a great brand, but you're looking at a lot of these initial franchisees that are continuing to kind of build the system for Groovy and Horsepower to adapt and to grow. So from the franchisor side, we're learning from you as a franchisee. We're adapting our FDD. In the future, if you go out of business, theoretically, we could just sell your territory to somebody else. And if we have enough cash to survive that, then we'll be okay. But it's on the backs of
The franchisee.
the franchisees that failed. And so those are the things that I think people need to be careful of when looking at a franchise. Is, are they moving too fast? Are they adding franchisees too fast?
So sometimes that can be as much of a detriment.
It very well
Yep.
could be. So like I said, I think Groovy and Horsepower, they're going to figure it out. But when you're looking at a concept, you not only need to know, I think these are the things you need to look at when you look at a concept. Do I trust the team? Am I impressed by this team when I go meet them? Is there something about the founder? Is there something about the team itself that's going to help me operate that I look at them and I'm like, wow, I have a crush on you guys. Like, I'm infatuated by you, right? Like, I like want to be around you. Do they actually have a founder that knows the business, right? And then not only do I have enough money to meet the minimum, because all the franchises have a minimum requirement, but do I have the minimum plus some, right? Because if you're just barely scraping by, knowing what we know about franchising, that we're usually trying to get a lot of people in, we're trying to get them in fast, you need to have the money plus some, because it might take you a little bit longer than some of the other franchisees who came in and maybe they had a big minimum. Yeah, maybe they had a big network that when they started the business, they were able to automatically expand and grow because they knew a lot of people in their industry. Maybe they already had a lot of those connections, right? Like you have to think about best case scenario and worst case scenario and then plan accordingly. And I think if we move too fast as a franchise, I don't like saying like franchise industry, but in the space
franchise
of
systems, franchise opportunities.
Yeah, in the opportunity of franchising, if we move too fast, not only are we missing out on like potential opportunities and bringing the right person into our space, we're like creating bad situations for people, which is only going to be a ripple effect for us down the line.
Yeah,
which we got to be careful.
And it can tarnish the industry,
or
100%. Sour the
100%.
mindset of the industry as a whole. Yeah.
Yeah, I find like when I talk to franchisees, man, too many of them, I mean, over half are somewhat disgruntled about the brand. Now, a lot of that is their mindset, but you got to think about the disconnect between when I'm talking to the brand rep who's saying all the great things on the development side, and then I buy into this franchise. Now I'm working with a separate team on the operations side. I don't interact with that person again.
Yeah.
Like they're gone. They're on to the next.
Yeah, we changed that in our system.
Now I'm interacting. I'm interested in that because now I'm interacting with operations, and not only do I not talk to that person anymore, they might have different perspectives on what the business actually is and what it takes to run the business. Those are all things you got to be careful of.
Yeah, no, we kind of changed a lot of that. That's actually really good because we've changed all that in the last year to where as much as possible our operations team is part of FranDev.
Interesting.
A lot of it, not completely, because in a lot of ways we still haven't. We completely changed our entire FranDev strategy a little less than a year ago.
Okay.
And we're still really working through it. So
super interesting.
But the key part, and I love what you just said there because that's a key part of what we're doing. We don't have a separate FranDev like we did. We had that, but now our operations team plus Ben is basically FranDev.
We've got to keep the experience consistent.
Yeah.
That's part of the goal is to keep the experience consistent and have stability for the franchisee.
Because I don't want to create a thing of like franchisees are the victims, right? They have to do their due diligence themselves. They can't walk into this lazy. I think too many franchisees come in thinking it's going to be a passive.
They think it's guaranteed.
It's guaranteed, and it's just because I buy into this system and invest, it's going to work. It's really for your individuals that are operating on your team. You want to set them up for success too as a franchisor. Make sure that everything is clear. So one thing that I like about Groovy, they had the franchise development rep come in and be the sales guy for a while. They paused development for a little bit, had him come in, learn about the woes of franchisees in the system before going back and selling more. And I think things like that are important, and I've got respect when a brand will do something like that and then make sure that these guys are on the same page because we're all trying to win. We're all trying to build these businesses and be successful.
Like we say in the franchise business, that's part of the business. Is we're in it. You've got a partner in that with you. You're not doing it on your own.
For yourself, not by yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What does the next 5, 10 years look like for you?
Man, that's a great question. I feel like I'm split, right? On one hand, I have my businesses in my portfolio, and we're building an operating team that can manage these brands from a leadership capacity, and it doesn't matter the brand. I've got a leader that can be over the individual brands and then a team to be over those leaders. But I really love the consulting side. I love what I've been able to build with Streetwise, and I love the opportunity to connect with people and grow in the space. And I feel like I've got a passion for building out these systems, and the more I interact with franchisors, I really like hearing their whys and what they're doing. So I'm kind of at a fork, man. I think for me, I'm going to continue to build Streetwise and continue to add value and continue to put franchisees into systems until somebody comes and buys up my portfolio. We're going to gradually build it. I don't know if I'm in the space unless I had an investor come in and want me as an operator. I will not be looking for cash to grow my system, but I will continue to build out the operation where if an investor wanted to invest in what I'm building, we could continue to expand on that. I think we got something special on that front, but I love
awesome.
connecting. I love creating content.
I'm a
It's lot
believer
of
you
fun.
can do all of the above.
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's,
I was going to ask, it's like, why not do both?
You can do all of the above.
I think for me, when you think about building out multiple things at once, right, it spreads you.
Yeah.
And it takes time to stack things up. And so right now I'm looking at it and I've spread myself pretty thin. And so I'm working on building up the foundation before I spread even more.
Now that I can relate to.
Yeah.
Because you got to build that, you got to maintain the foundation and build upon the foundation before you can have anything on top of it.
I'm also in a space where like just pure vulnerability, like everything that I eat, I kill myself right now, all of it. And I've got some residual revenue from my businesses that are providing for my family, but the consulting thing, I mean, I only get paid if somebody does a deal. They don't pay me to work with me. I could work with you for 3 years and not get paid a dime until you decide it's the right opportunity to invest in a franchise business, which is pretty cool because I can work with anybody and have no issues there. I'm just giving free game. But for my family, my wife, at this point, she would really like some consistency in that. But I'm open, man. I'm here. I'm walking through life like this. God will put things in front of me, and I feel like if I can truly just continue to add value. I went through the whole Go Giver series by John David Mann and Bob Berg.
I haven't heard of that one.
Oh man,
Go Giver?
The Go Giver.
Okay.
The whole concept is the more you give, the more you receive. It's synonymous to like a go-getter. You have to be a go-getter to be a go-giver. You have to be super ambitious. It's just the concept of I am giving as much value as I can. I imbue value. And by doing that, I will create a world where in 5-10 years, like you asked, what I'm looking at is exponentially bigger, and I'm looking at it from like that picture up there. I got an exponential viewpoint than I would have had if I was just worried about myself.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at right now, man. And it's a journey. It's a lot of fun. It's crazy. Not everybody's built for this life, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So I'm curious about the podcast. What has your experience been like doing virtual podcasts?
Dude, I love it. I wish I had a setup like this because the virtual podcast, you always have like technical difficulties, right? Like things just happen, the screens freeze, and there's just such like an organic flow that comes from engaging. Like we can interrupt each other and it's
not
okay.
confusing to everybody.
It doesn't confuse and blow the whole thing up. It's not awkward. It's just conversation. But I'll say this. I reached out to a franchisor 2 years ago. I was on a roof installing Christmas lights, and I heard his podcast on a couple other platforms, and I reached out and was like, man, I love what you're doing. I would love to connect. His response was, I appreciate you. I'm very busy. I don't really have the time. I was like, respect. I'm going to keep following you. We'll be in touch one day. That was 2 years ago. I reached out to him yesterday on LinkedIn. I said, hey, man, I got a podcast platform. It's been 2 years since we came in touch. I've interviewed this person, this person, this person. I would love to have you as a guest on the podcast.
We can learn something from him on how
5
to get
minutes later, dude, I would love it. Let's go. Send him the link. It's scheduled for
That's awesome.
a couple weeks.
That's
like,
awesome.
It's crazy. You ask a lot of these guys like, hey man, let me buy you coffee. But I need you to buy me coffee for. But you talk about a virtual podcast platform where you guys don't know how many followers I have. And I'm not going to tell you. I'll give you a range, right? Like it's growing, right? But nobody knows. It's all about how you present yourself, right? And what you show and the confidence. And if I can show you that I can provide you value with my voice. So it's a beautiful thing. I love it. My network has grown immensely since I started a little over a year ago now. And
so
we're
it's mostly you just like in the moment. You've heard another podcast, you saw it in the business, whatever, heard someone speak maybe, and you're just sending them a DM, right?
Yeah, so now I want my stuff to be 60, 70% franchising. And then I'll talk to anybody that's a business owner that I like what they're doing, if I feel like I can vibe with their message. If you're an industry expert, so the Go-Giver, Bob Berg, reached out to him today and was like, hey man, I'd love to interview you. Athletes, love talking to athletes, love talking to veterans because those skills are applicable to business ownership. Anybody that has a crazy story that you can apply. My whole thing is we connect through pain points and we learn through pain points and we find our purpose through pain points. And so if I can relate to you off of what's the hardest thing you ever went through, right? Like where's something that you like truly failed and fell on your face? And if you're willing to be vulnerable, that's really my only catch. Like if I don't think somebody can be vulnerable through that and meet me there, that's not really somebody I want to have on the show because that's not really going to add value to my audience in the way that I want to.
Do you ever ask to be on other people's podcasts?
I've just started because I realized that, I mean, you guys have such a different platform and a different audience than I do. And so if I want to build and grow my own, it helps to reach out to others. And so I'm pretty new to doing that, but I just started. Yeah, I think it's very valuable for sure. So I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
And we talked about this, but I want y'all on mine. So
yeah, for sure.
Streetwise Nation needs to hear what y'all got going on.
We need to schedule it.
Yeah.
Let's get it scheduled.
No doubt.
Individually. I talk too much. I'll
come
just
on.
talk over Ben.
Yes,
So.
yes, let's go. Let's go.
Do you have any other questions?
Not really off the top of my head. This has been great.
Do you have questions? We've got time.
We got time. Dang.
And the fly left you alone.
So the fly finally left me alone. All right. So thinking about like what you guys have built and talking about, Chorby and you got Chorby, Scoop Soldiers, Emerald.
No, that's gone. That's what Chorby became.
Okay.
Executive Lawn Care is still the business I bought 10 years ago. That got spun off in 2016. It's still an operating independent business.
Got it. So thinking about like all you guys are building and scaling, like what is something that punched you in the face in the last like 12 months that you guys are dealing with right now?
In the last 12 months? What punched me in the face?
Yeah, like really like almost knocked out a tooth.
Punches.
No, in all seriousness, Brent did not punch me in the face. His creativity makes up for all of the punches in the face. He did tell me that I need to buy different shirts and told me that I need to dress better and told me I look fat in certain things that I wear, all sorts of stuff. So maybe those are just mild punches. Those are just little slaps. Punch in the face. Ben, help me with that. What's been a punch in the face in the last year? I operate in this world of gratitude where like I don't usually think about the punches in the face.
I got one more, by the way. So
I broke my leg. That really pissed me off. Like that messed up my world. I was used to just going. Never been hurt in any capacity.
Hockey?
I was playing ice hockey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I played ice hockey up until that for pretty much my entire life. But I wouldn't call that. I mean that definitely threw me. That I actually just sat in the recliner before this.
It pissed me off too because I had to. Well, of course.
Brent, see, by the way, I was about to joke with you. Even in person has tech difficulties. Okay, but no. Is there anything else that comes to mind? We're still going here, right?
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking was Jeff in Northwest Arkansas.
Yeah, we had a franchisee for the first time. Thanks. But again, I don't feel like that was a punch in the face because it ended up working out. But we had one franchisee that ended up not working out. So out of all of our franchisees, which we've had, I think, 16 franchisees in total. But now we're down to 14. No, so we had 17 franchisees in total. Now we're down to 14 because two operations merged.
Okay, cool.
And then the one didn't make it. So he was in business about 18 months. But he bought his business almost like you were talking about. I think he had this idea that it was just an immediate automatic success and he didn't have to do anything. He actually built through marketing, through our digital marketing, his business built up pretty good. But he didn't do anything that he was supposed to. He didn't pay his payroll taxes. He didn't pay his sales taxes. He didn't do the things that just any basic business person is supposed to do. So we had to take it back from him. I don't know what you call that. We had to default him. That's the word. We had to default So that sucked, but again, I wouldn't call it a punch in the face per se because it was something that we dealt with. It took about 9 months to really deal with it.
Did you learn anything from it?
Oh, I learned a lot about how to default to franchisee.
There you go.
But no, that's not something you want to do often at all.
Yeah.
And so that's not something I'm proud of. It's not something that.
I think it helped expose areas of opportunities with our processing candidates.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, and that did play. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
You said you had a second question.
Second question is something you said, I don't know if it was last time I was here or the first time we met, you talked about disrupting the broker networks in the space.
Oh, yeah.
Super interested in that because, and just for context, I've gotten a lot of flack. I think I told you this last time. A lot of, not necessarily criticism, but pushback for the way that I present myself. And I mean, you look at my last post, I mean, I'm wearing a Hajime no Ippo anime t-shirt while I'm interviewing a franchisee. I spit out that name pretty quick.
You're bringing in. I don't even know what that is.
I saw it. Somebody will though. Somebody will know exactly, and they'll turn up. They'll turn up. But I've gotten a lot of flack for the way that I present myself. It's like, hey, no, we got to be more professional than that. But I want to be raw. I want to be real. I've already been rejected.
Authentic. What's in our transparent.
Yeah, and I've already been rejected for my authenticity and lack of polish in certain areas. And so for me, that's I want to build that way. And so the idea of disrupting. In a new audience. There it is.
I'm sorry if I spoke over.
No, there it is though. The idea of disrupting the space. When you said it, I liked it.
So I'll get into that, but first, just to be, I think that you're bringing in a different audience when you're doing that, and so I don't think there should be anything wrong with it. You just got to be prepared to get the flack a little bit, especially from the more traditional people in the business, which I poked fun at earlier. I have tremendous respect for the broker networks. I poked fun MBAs and those that have never actually. What I meant is they've never been business owners.
Likewise,
they don't understand. So I've always found it. Again, I actually really I'm actually encouraging Ben to get his CFE,
Dude, let's go.
as well as Jeremy Langlet's.
I'm curious about that process too.
Yeah, no, we can talk about that for a second if you want, because we're just learning it literally right now, and Ben's about to start it. But I'm also encouraging our other business partner at White Picket Team, Jeremy Langlet's.
You're getting connected with like the IFA and all that.
Yeah, joining the White Picket Team, joining IFA. I think that's a trade group. I've been skeptical and cynical even of IFA. Scoop Soldiers was a member. Now we're not a member right now. We're about to be a member again. But I've even been a little skeptical of the IFA because I don't agree with everything they do. I don't agree with some of their more woke and political stance in some areas. In other areas I do. But I realized that regardless, I may not agree with them 100%, but they are lobbying on behalf of me, whether I want them to or not. They're lobbying on behalf of me as a franchisor. And there's a lot of things in this country, a lot of regulation in this country that is an attack on the franchise model.
Facts.
And so I actually see a lot of value in the IFA. I also see a lot of value in the overall industry of franchising, whether it be the broker networks, whether it be the C-suite, being consultants and or just guys running franchise businesses for entrepreneurs like me. I see an enormous amount of professionalism in the industry that the home service industry can very much so benefit from, whether it's lawn mowing and plumbing or whether it's poop scooping. There's so much that the franchise industry in all ways could help the home services industry and professionalize it. That's the good side of the industry.
Yes.
The bad side of the industry is some of what you talked about. It's this idea that you're selling a dream. You're selling, you're getting somebody to put in their life savings in many cases, selling them on a vision that you don't even believe in, and if you did, maybe you'd be a business owner inside, you'd own a franchise, or you'd be a franchisor that's also in the brokerage. So I actually really respect what you're doing because you actually practice what you preach. You're an investor, you're building a portfolio. That's why I say do all of the above if you can figure it out, because you're an investor. And so therefore, to me, if I'm looking at buying a franchise, I'm looking at you saying this guy actually believes what he's offering. So I love that, but that's also the bad side of it because a lot of the industry doesn't do that at all, and they sell it, and it's expensive, and they're selling you a dream that they don't even fully believe in many cases.
Yeah.
Not all cases at all. And actually, that's probably even the more the minority. I don't think the majority of the industry. What I meant by disrupting the industry, why I'm doing this, why we're doing this, why we're getting out there and putting ourselves out there, we recognize that if Chorby can execute the way it wants, we're going to need hundreds and even thousands of partners through franchising. Thousands of franchisees. Think Neighborly. I mean, literally Neighborly, like I just said, they're the best example of what I want to do. Only eliminate all of those 30 brands or 20 to 30 brands and just have one brand. So they've got what, 5,000 franchisees?
Yeah,
something
so
like that.
Instead of doing it through the acquisition, doing it from organic.
We have to do it
growth.
organically because that's why I think Neighborly's got us beat when it comes to the resources they can put into this. But those same resources are what's working against them. It will be really hard, if not impossible, for Neighborly to ever bring all of y'all, the franchisees, within their system. I mean, heck, they own Moxie Pest Control and Mosquito Joe, so they'll never fully be able to do it without selling off aspects of their business because they've actually got competing franchise opportunities. Am I right?
I don't think they own Moxie.
I think
Moxie has used. It's actually, maybe fact check this later and somebody can edit in and correct us either way. I think Moxie actually uses that Neighborly brand, some version of that as a tagline, but I
thought that they had been acquired by them.
They are actually a franchise.
So I'll stand corrected on that if in fact that's the case. But
either one of us could be
I
right.
am fairly confident that Neighborly as a whole and all those brands, there are some cross. There's some cross.
There is some like synergy, yes. Like there could be a brand that does maybe an auxiliary service crosses over with another brand that has auxiliary service.
Exactly.
Yes.
So there's some of that, and so they'll always have those challenges. Plus, those franchisees bought into said brand. You bought into a Mosquito Joe's brand. You didn't necessarily buy in, and many of the old school Mosquito Joe's guys, they didn't necessarily buy into the Neighborly brand.
So I think something that my pushback to Neighborly is because a lot of you get the benefit to Neighborly for combining everything, but I always want to know what's the benefit to the franchisee for that cross marketing. And I think if they can figure out some sort of model that benefits me, I mean, by all means, I love boosting the whole.
But overall, getting, it's just like HOA. We were talking HOAs. Yeah. You'd end up needing to do that. If I was the president of Neighborly, I'd be like, look, I got to have like 2/3 or better buy-in in this. And it's hard to get 2/3 of buy-in in anything. And so that's what I mean. That's their challenge. My challenge is figuring out how to get the resources to build the technology, not to mention to market to all of these services. We've talked about focus and how that actually does help a lot, and that is not at all Chorby. And so how do we grow all of these different verticals while serving franchisees and everything else? So I circle all the way back. What do I mean by disrupting? What I mean by is I intend to bypass the broker networks by and large. I intend to build a following under our White Picket Team brand and under the Pet Waste Millionaire brand that brings us candidates so that we can do our own Fran Dev, right?
Yeah.
But without having to spend the small fortune, whether it be through traditional marketing for franchise opportunities or whether it be through the broker networks or the C-suites, hiring individuals. We kind of did that already where we hired in our in-house franchise development that was a seasoned franchise executive.
Okay.
So all of these, I intend to bypass all of that so that suddenly, a lot of this industry wakes up one day and we're on this is where the vanity comes in, and we're on every single one of the dang lists.
Yeah.
And not only are we on every single list, but like, the franchise 500 fastest growing, right? I envision a day where Chorby's got on that list like 30 times, because all of our different verticals, all of our different FDDs, our franchise opportunities are on there, and we've literally bypassed most of the industry that makes a fortune off of entrepreneurs like me that franchise their business. That's the piece I mean by disrupting it.
Man.
And from that, also, it's the Pet Waste Millionaire brand disrupting it, but also White Picket Team disrupting it by offering, and a lot of the stuff we'll do with White Picket Team that's still really in development.
Love that. And that's super cool. I think even hearing you say that, I see a lot of the other parent companies working to do what you said, and I think that there's such an avenue for you guys to sit back and just observe how they're doing it and piece together the what is Horsepower doing to try to apply those concepts. What is Neighborly doing? What is Resi Brands doing? You can kind of sit back, because all those guys are already in the broker networks. Some of them are trying to back their way out of it, right? For what they all got their own personal reasons. Some are getting in more, some are backing their way out and trying to not have to rely on the broker networks, because
they're expensive.
The broker networks franchise is expensive. One of the most exclusive and expensive broker networks that is out there, but it goes both. It's a wave, right? Like, I remember when I was in training, Trent Halverson is the guy that's over brands coming in and going out of franchise. He told me in training, like, we have the potential to hurt brands in the sense of, as soon as they sign up with franchise, we flood them with candidates. And if they're not ready, we can hurt their system. Now, what I've seen on the other side is that you get franchisees coming into these systems, and if the system's not good, and you get the broker network to turn away from you, that can significantly hurt your growth. If that's the only, you've invested all this money into it, and that's your main lead source, that can hurt you on both ways. Now, that incentivizes you to create a healthy system that supports your franchisees, but it can be a wave one way or the other. So I think you see brands trying to work backwards from those networks. So all that to say, I got a lot of respect. And I'm very curious and excited to see how you guys build it.
Well, I got to build the following first.
Okay.
that and the technology, which
Yeah.
we're actually this summer we're pulling the trigger on establishing a technology entity that will build a technology that will actually work for our home service brands, including Scoop Soldiers, Chorby, and beyond.
Super interesting. I was hanging out with the guys at Bloomin' Blinds and talking about how they're using AI to come into their system. Super.
Do they own like a proprietary CRM?
They have, they're building it out now. And it's just, I had Kelsey Stewart, the CEO, him and his two brothers basically took over the business from their mom, and they've been building this thing for 20 years and then franchised it a few years ago. And they're a brand in franchise Fastlane. I love those guys.
Fastlane or Bloomin' Blinds?
I love Bloomin' Blinds. I love Fastlane too, but
Fastlane's who we got the closest. We almost 2 years ago this August pulled the trigger with Fastlane.
Interesting.
Almost. I don't know.
With Scoop or with
Scoop Soldiers? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Chorby has one franchisee. He owns a 3-pack. He owns 3 territories, basically Denton County, Prosper,
That's right.
swinging down. But he's like our guinea pig, because we've got an FDD for lawn care, Chorby Lawn Care franchising, but this technology, I would take on another franchisee, 1 to 2 more here in Dallas, and we could handle that. But it's so clunky when it comes to our back-end CRM. It's really, really clunky.
I respect the slow growth, man.
We can't
I think
scale.
that's the way to do it, because you try to expedite this thing and you don't have it down to the T yet.
Not even close. The technology has to be built, and it hadn't even started yet.
Oh,
so
that's
we're
cool,
2
man.
years away.
So y'all almost got with Fastlane. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
we almost Carrie, I think. Yeah, Carrie. We had good conversations.
Gilly.
And great. And we had great. They're hustlers. They could have changed our.
They get after it.
They didn't. I remember them saying they don't take on a brand if they don't think they can award 50 territories in the next year.
That's the thing. That's the whole thing.
18 months.
Get them in the fast lane, man.
Yeah.
You get in the fast lane, we move fast.
Yeah, but they wanted. But did I hear you say they somehow now affiliated with the Fran DevCo?
No, two separate.
Two separate. Okay.
Two separate.
Because Fran DevCo is now they're pushing a pet waste opportunity. What is
That's
it?
Scoop Brothers.
Yeah, Scoop
That's
Brothers.
Scoop Brothers.
Yeah, you've probably seen the sponsored ads on your social media.
Well, I had they had a launch call with us about a month or so ago, and then I had one of the brand development guys on my show. That episode hasn't dropped yet, but I had him on a while ago.
Oh, well, we gotta have Scoop Soldiers. We gotta have Scoop Soldiers in the Pet Waste
We talk
Millionaire
about
on
Scoop
next.
Brothers for like a second, but yeah, come on, man, let's do it. Let's do it. Super interesting guy. I don't know too much about them. I know that I don't know if they have, I think the way that you described Chorby, very similar to how they are. So you basically have a founding location that has built up a pretty significant business in his market.
Which is Charlotte, if I'm not
now,
Charlotte.
Yeah, there you go, and is now turning to franchise it. Yeah. So it's not like they have multiple markets open. And
Right,
then,
and I also think, if I'm understanding, putting pieces together both from what you've mentioned from your experience, but just what I generally know from, Google and the posts that they've made. So you've got a founder in Charlotte that's built a nice size pet waste business. You have Fran Dev Co. that came in and partnered with him. And I'm guessing he has some equity in the franchise company, but Fran Dev Co. has most of the equity, and they're building the franchise opportunity.
I'm not sure exactly how Fran Dev Co. structures it. I would probably assume that there's something like that. And I think when you have these FSOs come in, they either take a big chunk of those franchise fee, or they take some sort of equity in it.
Or both.
Or both. And Fran Dev Co. actually does more than something like a Fast Lane, where they have some operational input as well. So that could be.
And that's more in line. Talking about White Picket and the pet business. So I've talked to Chorby. In addition to that, I don't envision Scoop Soldiers being my last franchise opportunity in the pet space. I envision doggy daycare opportunities, which will be my entry into brick and mortar. I don't know brick and mortar, but I intend to learn it, and then provide some sort of an opportunity in doggy daycares. But before that, I'm really interested in mobile dog grooming as an opportunity. Starting a mobile grooming business and/or partnering with an existing mobile grooming business and franchising it, one or the other. And then the other one that you don't see much of, Ben's a customer, is just dog nail trimming. Mobile dog. So think of the simplicity.
So
it's
not
like
the
pet waste
grooming,
removal.
just the trimming.
Just coming by. How often do they come to your house? Every 6 weeks.
Why wouldn't you do the full grooming?
Because of
Speed. So it's the same. Think of how simple the pet waste industry is. And, Pet Butler, a famous franchise in the pet business, in my opinion, they complicated their business because now they do dog walking and dog sitting. But when it's so simple that all you got to do is spend 6 minutes. How long are they at your house?
Dude, less than 10 minutes.
10 minutes. And it's think of how much easier it is to train the talent to do grooming of your feet versus an entire groomer.
So you're taking something like Aussie Pet Mobile.
Yes.
Which is one that's in
that's the
bucket.
model that I envision for mobile dog grooming, just your traditional mobile grooming business.
But you're taking that and you're just
simplifying it.
Now, this is so interesting to me. So as a consumer, and I've got 2 dogs, but they usually I'm not like the ideal customer, but does a customer think about the nails?
He uses them. He uses a service for it.
My situation is I've got a kiddo around.
Sure.
Who loves to play with the dogs.
Sure.
I can deal with the hair, and they don't need baths that often.
Sure.
But the nails need to get trimmed frequently.
Interesting.
And you can damage you can hurt them if you're not.
Yeah,
sometimes it's a very
When I've
I
taken
will
my
not
dog,
cut my dog's nails like that. I'm not doing.
Well, I've taken them to the groomer, and the groomer will give them a nice bath, a nice trim. They smell good, but he's come back bleeding before because they're not.
Because they're not. It's hard to do.
Not the expertise.
But it's also low cost for the consumer, like pet waste removal is, as opposed to grooming for both of my dogs. It's $120 with tip, and I do that every 6 weeks. 8
Facts.
weeks.
That's why my dogs get so scraggly, because I'm not trying to pay that every.
That's why I don't get dogs that have fur.
6
I like
weeks.
short-haired dogs for that reason.
Wow.
But yeah, it costs.
He can do 20 houses in a day, easily.
And it's just simple.
Interesting. I like that.
So that one interests me. Another one that's up and coming with the pet business and most of them, I like brick. I want to get it. Brick and mortar interests me, but I don't know it. So I tend to gear towards the mobile stuff. But the other one is dog, and y'all saw this. I didn't see this until the T-Pig that's dropping tour that's dropping tomorrow. They had one in Jacksonville, but it's a van that's got a treadmill for dogs. So basically, you pull up to somebody's house and you put them on this treadmill to get them their exercise.
No way.
Yeah, that's a thing too. So I had never seen the setup until it's on the next T-Pig episode.
So from a labor perspective, I mean, you got somebody that's driving the vehicle to the house, but instead of walking them around the neighborhood, you just put them in the back of the van.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it was, right? Yeah.
School bus.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
But that's John Amarafi, one of our franchisees, met a person here in Collin County that does it because it was something my business partner Josh discovered like 2 years ago and was really interested in. But yeah, no. So there's all these different pet oriented. So I do envision being a multi-brand franchisor. Chorby will be one of those brands that maybe has 10, 15, 20 FDDs
Bunch
in
of
its own
legs.
right.
Sure.
But Scoop Soldiers, plus whatever, and these other brands will
Sure.
be independent brands.
Oh, I love that.
All operated and basically managed by White Picket team.
Love it. I mean, when you look at franchising, you've got the services, you've got senior care, child enrichment, you've got the fitness, the health and wellness,
Yep.
but pets is huge.
Yes, and gonna keep growing
And it's
until
only
there's an
gonna keep growing.
apocalypse.
It's only going to
Until
keep
there's
growing.
gonna be an apocalypse, it's gonna keep growing.
Yeah, we realize these guys aren't pivotal to our literal survival. As long as we have the capacity to enjoy
It's
them.
just a beauty. It's
Yeah.
That's what I love about capitalism in 2024. Between technology and a positive business environment, most of the time, there's so much opportunity.
That's actually super interesting. I
That's
love
why
that.
our
I'm
slogan is
excited.
"Find your gold" at Pet Waste Millionaire. You know,
love
we
it,
turn poop into gold, but there's a million different things that people can find and do to better humanity, better their community, both their extended community, as in the people that live in Allen and all of our community, but also their family members and their relationships,
Oh, that's
all through
beautiful, man.
business.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love it. I'm excited to see what y'all do with Chorby, with Scoop Soldiers, White Picket. Man. y'all
Yeah,
got good
well,
stuff
I'm excited
going,
with
man.
what you guys got going on too. So we
Yeah.
got to definitely be on the Streetwise podcast.
No doubt, no doubt. If I can ever add value to y'all, man, holler at me.
Already happening.
All right.
Absolutely.
Before we leave, we're going to schedule the podcast.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'll
Let's
send
do
that
it.
link. We'll do it.
Awesome. Cool. All right.
Do we need to do the?
All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Hey, if this episode added any value to your life at all, please like it, share it, give me a 5-star review. It's the only way that this show is going to gain traction and help more people achieve their dreams. If you're ready to start your franchise journey, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's set up a time to talk. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.